Welcome to the after show, everybody. And we are blessed to be with Brother James Francis Twyman. You saw a little clip during our Global Peace Tribe announcements. And I would love for you to share with us how can we really create peace in the world? So now that we're aware, we see all the headlines about the imminent danger to Ukraine. What can we do as individuals? Certainly, of course, joining you on Tuesday, but also just in general, how can we create peace in our world?
It's a great question, Scott. First of all, to realize just how powerful we are, both collectively and individually. We each have within us this amazing power to build and to bring peace, especially when we join together. There is power in joining. And we've seen many times before when thousands or even millions of people join together to focus their intention, that powerful positive vibration onto a given world crisis, miracles happen. I could give example after example, but I'll give two quick ones because they both
Give
have
us a
to
couple
do.
examples. Yeah.
Yeah, very early on, I started off as the Peace Troubadour going into Bosnia and Croatia during that war in the mid 90s. And then a few years later, after my first book, Emissary of Light, came out, I was invited by Saddam Hussein to come to Baghdad at the same time we were getting ready to launch a major military offensive against the Iraqi people. There didn't seem to be any way of blocking this. This was in 1998. And at that time, very few people really had emails and email lists, but we sent out an email to about 300 people asking them to be praying and sending their positive energy and prayers to that situation in Iraq. At the same time, I would be doing the concert in Baghdad. And that it was one of the first examples of a viral video just taking off, and millions of people found out about it and were participating. I could feel during the concert like it was raining this positive energy. And there didn't seem to be any possibility of a negotiated peace. But 3 days later, everything changed. We could almost feel the energy shift during that concert, and a peace accord was signed. Well, as things happen, it got a little hairy again. And so my friend Greg Braden and I, we decided to do this again. We called it the Great Experiment. Let's see if we can prove that this is not only a powerful force, but perhaps the most powerful force in the whole universe. And once again, we were right there in the verge. We invited people all over the world to be part of this synchronized meditation. And what we didn't know at the time, but found out the next day, was that at the same time, there were so many people who were praying, being, sending their energy, being part of this synchronized meditation. At the same time this was happening, President Clinton had given the order for the jets and the bombers to be launched from the aircraft carriers. They were literally hovering above Iraq, waiting for the final order to begin bombing. And to this day, no one knows quite what happened. But it was almost as if in the face of this positive energy, it couldn't happen. The planes were called back to the aircraft carriers. A very short time later, they were launched again, and then they were brought back. One night, not a single person was injured or killed. This is what began to inspire us. And over and over and over, I could tell so many stories of the miracles that have happened. But obviously, we're in a pivotal moment right now with the Russian forces on the Ukrainian border. This is much more than just a regional skirmish. This is something that could so easily escalate and get out of control in a very terrible way. And this is why it's so important that we all join together at 9 a.m. Pacific time, noon and Eastern US time on February 22nd, which is on Tuesday, which is a very auspicious number because it's 222-2022. And so unified.org is doing a whole day of events on that day. We're going to be starting off. I was intending to be in Ukraine. Tickets were purchased, everything was organized with our sponsor there in Kiev. But unfortunately, the flights have been canceled. American citizens are now not being allowed to leave. In fact, they're being forced out. Everyone has to leave. So I won't be able to be there physically, but we do have a contingency of people from the Peace School in Ukraine who are going to be joining us on unify.org/love. That's where you can actually watch it and participate with thousands of people. But if you can't be there at that time, we invite you just to stop what you're doing. And here's the key: to feel, to get the energy and the feeling that peace has already come to Ukraine, that this situation has already been solved and healed. If enough of us do this positive energy on a feeling basis, this is where the power of prayer really becomes tangible. It's not about asking for something to happen, or what we would call a petitionary prayer. It's about feeling that it's already done. In doing so, we take part in the collective vibratory energy of the completion of this goal in advance, and the energy follows. So I just invite you, please spread the word. You can tell everyone to go to unify.org/love, or just send out the information. If you want to get an email, you can always go to my website, which is jamesftwyman.com. Register for our email blast. We're going to be sending out an email right before the vigil happens so that you have all of these links. Participate, join millions of people. Let's do our best to make sure that peace is prevailing on earth and in the Ukraine.
Wow, thank you so much. And I actually, in what you shared, I want to share with you a story you may not know, which you can then share because it's a powerful story about creating peace. A few years ago, you know how presidential files are released in different periods. Some are held for 25 years, some for 50 years. Well, they released some of the files from when President Nixon was president. And it turns out that during the Vietnam War, when America was clearly losing the war, on a very rainy day in Washington, D.C., a group of generals came over to meet with Nixon, and they presented a proposal to use nuclear weapons on Hanoi to turn the tide of the war. That particular day, had been raining and pouring, and Nixon had gone out, and when he came back in, he saw all these protesters, all these kids getting soaked in the rain, protesting the Vietnam War. And here he is about to make this incredible, important decision, because if he said, okay, thumbs up, nuclear weapons would have been dropped.
Wow.
And in the records, it specifically says, you know what? I see all those kids out there in the rain protesting. What the hell is going to happen if we start using nuclear weapons? And he said, no. And my tears come because those kids probably have no idea what they did. They just were like, what are we doing? Nobody's paying any attention to us. We're getting soaked. But God knows how they changed the course of history and saved God knows how many lives by their action. So sometimes when we're praying for peace, peacefully protesting, we don't know who's seeing it. We don't know how we're impacting. And so that's why it is so important for us to pray for peace. And thank you so much for leading vigils and opportunities for us to come together and create peace together.
I love that story. Thank you for so much for sharing that with all of us. And you're right, it shows the simple, impactful ways that we can begin to shape this moment and history. I mean, who knows what would have happened if they had not been standing in the rain that day. But like, as you said, they had no idea. And we have no idea just by sitting in our room and joining in a broadcast, or just sitting and praying for 15 minutes and sending our energy. There are going to be thousands and perhaps even millions of people doing that with you. And we have no idea just how powerful and impactful that can be. As I said before, I really believe that this is the most powerful force in the universe. We can't explain it, we can't understand it, but we can feel it and we can see the results. I can tell you once again, let me give you one more example, actually.
Please do.
One of the more recent prayer vigils that I was part of was when I, excuse me, with a group of other religious leaders. We went to the border of Syria about, I think, 5 or 6 years ago now, and we were looking down from the Golan Heights into Syria, and there was going to be a massive prayer vigil for the situation there, and we could actually see a town in front of us that was held by ISIS. The battle was actually going on in front of us. We could see the tanks, we could hear the guns, and here we are on this hill, far enough away that we weren't in danger, but we could see and hear everything. And there we were, knowing that there were people all over the world joining us, and there were maybe 100 of us there on that hill with Jewish leaders, Muslim leaders, Christian leaders, singing, praying, people all over the world. And then we stopped and we had 10 minutes of silence. And whereas before these bombs and weapons were going off, during that period of silence, nothing. There was not a sound, not a single gun was fired during that period. And then I was looking at my watch to see when the 10 minutes was up so I could lead people in a song. And as I noticed that, I took a deep breath, but before anything came out, just beneath us, we didn't know there was a pack of wolves, and they began to howl right exactly when the prayer vigil ended. And we can't explain these things, and this isn't magic, these are miracles, and miracles are natural when we get out of the way and allow them to happen. So once again, we invite all of you to join us at noon New York time, 9 a.m. Pacific US time on the 22nd, which is Tuesday. Just stop what you're doing. Know that you're being joined by so many other people around the world. If you want to get the email with all of the information, you can go to my website, jamesftwyman.com. Go to unify.org/love, and you can actually watch us. We'll be joined by our contingency in Kiev. They are very nervous, as we can imagine, but they're also very positive that we are going to be there with them. They're not alone. They're not isolated. We will be joining them.
Brother James Francis, thank you so much for who you are, what you do. It's always wonderful to have you on the shows, and I will be with you. And I know a lot of people are watching right now on Unify, and we'll all be with you watching on Unify Tuesday morning. And
Beautiful.
those who can't watch, take the time to drop in and pray. And let's keep praying and keep praying. Thank you so much.
Amen. Thank you, Scott, and many blessings. And may peace prevail on earth and in the Ukraine.